Today I want to chat with you about the newest addition to my camera kit, the Leica Q3. Now, the Leica Q series has been a camera series that's been on my radar and something I've wanted to purchase for a really long time now. If you've been following the channel for any amount of time, you might remember that back in 2023, I actually rented the Leica Q2 for a couple of weeks. I took it out to the Oregon coast, used it for some shoots out there, some shoots back here in Michigan. I did some photographs of my family and some personal life stuff, and really just fell in love with the very everyday style carry camera that the Q series represents. But even though I really loved the Q, I didn't really have the financial means, number one, to make that happen. And then two, my workflow just really didn't line up with the kind of slower pace that the Q series demands when you're shooting with it. At the time, I was shooting a lot of wedding work that required me to shoot photo and video at the same time, and so I was using really high performance cameras. The Canon R3 was my primary camera at that time, but over the past year and a half or so, my workflow has started to shift and really just kind of slow down in general. I've started taking on a lot more brand projects and commercial projects where I have the time and the space to be a little bit more intentional with the photography work that I'm doing. On the wedding side of things, I'm no longer accepting photo and video weddings. I'm just shooting photo or I'm just shooting video, which just allows me to be a little bit more intentional about both sides of that spectrum. I'm also traveling a lot more. I'm doing a lot more international and domestic travel. And so having a smaller format camera that I can take along to kind of capture those travel elements has all of a sudden become really, really relevant to my work. And then also in December of 2024, my wife and I welcomed our daughter into our family. We are now officially a family of 4. So with all of those changes happening, I really started feeling the need for a small, compact, yet very high quality camera that I could use to document my family life on, take on trips and do some travel photography, just kind of capture my normal personal life, but also is high enough quality and high enough caliber that I could use it on my professional paid shoots as well. I really wanted something that felt different than carrying around like my work cameras, my mirrorless cameras that I use on a daily basis, and yet something that could still measure up to those standards and be able to work alongside of those cameras when I needed it to on shoots. And so that's why at the end of 2024, I actually sold my Canon R3 and picked up the Leica Q3. And honestly, I just have to stop for a second and just say, it's crazy to think that I sold my R3. I have been such an avid and vocal R3 supporter. I love that camera. It's a fantastic camera. I'd still be using it if my workflow demanded those specific things, but I got to a point where I wasn't using the R3 up to its potential. And so I kind of had to be honest with myself and just go, hey, this is an awesome camera, but I just can't justify keeping it on my shelf if it's kind of just mostly collecting dust. So at the end of 2024, I finally just bit the bullet and did it, sold the R3 and picked up this Q3. And spoiler alert, I really love the Q3. Now the Q series is definitely not for everyone. It's a very specific type of camera. I did contemplate picking up like the Fuji X100 5 or 6, and while those cameras are phenomenal and do a really good job in the specific niches that they're in, I really wanted something with a little bit higher megapixel count. I wanted like a glass. I already have an M6 that I use when I'm shooting film, and so having another Leica camera that I could shoot digital just kind of made sense overall for me. So that's why I went with the Q versus some other kind of camera. But honestly, my experience with the Q3 has been nothing short of amazing. So now I just want to show you a bunch of sample images that I've taken on the Q3 over the past few months that I've owned it, and just kind of talk with you about my experience shooting with the Q3. And the first thing I want to mention is that this camera has done exactly what I wanted it to, and that's forced me to slow down and be more intentional with my photography. Now the Q3 is a digital camera, and so it does have autofocus and all that kind of stuff, but nothing super high performing like what you would expect out of like a Canon or a Sony mirrorless camera system. And honestly, that's been really phenomenal. This camera really forces you to slow down, be more intentional about your framing and compositions and the light and exactly kind of how you're framing the shot. Autofocus absolutely works, and I will say shooting with the Q3 versus shooting with the Q2, there's a noticeable difference in the autofocus performance on the Q3 versus my experience with the Q2, so I've really been appreciative of that. But overall, the camera really forces you to slow down. Even the button layout on the camera, there's not a lot of physical buttons, and the things that are available on the camera are like the manual aperture ring, the manual focus ring, the shutter dial on the top of the camera. All of these are designed to help you photograph more intentionally and to be able to kind of do all of your customizations without leaving the viewfinder. But other than that, there's not really a lot of custom buttons on the camera. The limited features and limited options really help you just focus in on the creative and the photographic side of things rather than trying to manipulate gear and change settings and all that. And I've really, really appreciated that about the Q3. I've got to take a minute too and just talk about the insane image quality out of this thing. I was really, really blown away by the image quality out of the Q2, and the Q3 takes that even a step further. The full frame 60 megapixel sensor paired with the Summilux 28mm f1.7 lens delivers just a really stunning image with a ton of clarity, a ton of color depth. You just kind of have to use it to see it, but I really love the image coming out of this thing. I've used this camera very extensively over the past few months, and it's honestly checked all of the boxes that I purchased it for. It's been a phenomenal camera to kind of document and capture my personal life, my family life, document my daughter's first few months. It's been the perfect like everyday carry camera just to capture normal life as it just kind of unfolds. I throw this in my backpack all the time, or just carry it with me to coffee shops and just kind of capture the normal unfoldings of everyday life in a way that I really wouldn't do with a larger mirrorless camera and lens setup. I've also used it in a lot of professional settings. I've taken this on wedding and portrait shoots that I've had, on brand and commercial shoots, whether that's studio or on set on location somewhere, and I've delivered a lot of the images that I've captured on this camera to my paying clients. And I find myself reaching for the Q3 a lot when I want just a little bit different perspective than what I'd be capturing on, say, my Sony cameras. Now, this wouldn't be a video talking about a Leica camera if I didn't talk about how I've customized this thing. I feel like you can't really own a Leica camera without doing some tweaks to it, and I definitely have. So I want to walk you through those real quick. The first and most obvious thing is that I have added a soft shutter release. This is just a little walnut shutter release from Artisan Obscura. Highly recommend. It just kind of threads into the top of the shutter button itself. Just adds a really nice wood aesthetic to the top of the camera. Definitely makes shooting with this camera a lot more pleasant than using just a built-in shutter button. I also have Leica's hot shoe thumb grip on the back of the camera, and honestly, I've loved this thing way more than I thought I would. One of the gripes that I had with the Q2 and just the Q series in general is that when you're carrying the Q series around like on a professional shoot, I feel like I kind of needed to have a strap. I like to handhold a lot of my cameras, but the Q series, just the way the body was designed, it just always felt a little bit loose in my hands. And having this kind of integrated thumb grip allows me just to add a little bit extra pressure on the camera. It feels a lot more solid in my hands, and so now I don't shoot anything without having the thumb grip attached. Speaking of straps, I do have a camera strap for this. I just have some of these little Peak Design anchors, and then I have this little neck strap from Clever Supply Co. I don't use this all the time, and I don't know if I'm going to stick with this strap long term, but this has been the strap that I've used so far, and I've really liked it. It's nice to be able to take a strap on and off very quickly. Again, I like the handhold of my cameras, so that's been really awesome there. And then the final piece of customization is on the front of the camera. It's not installed right now, but I did pick up the everyday filter from Polar Pro. This is the Short Stash collaboration filter. I just bought it in the 49mm version, which is what threads directly on underneath the hood of the camera. So it's kind of nice. There's nothing that sticks out or anything. Take the hood off, screw the filter thread on, and then put the hood back on. And so everything's kind of self-contained. But I shoot maybe 70% of my photos with this filter on. So if you don't know what this filter is, it's a combination polarizer plus mist filter. So it just allows you to cut down reflections if you're shooting through glass or shooting outdoors and want to kind of change the polarization with the sky. But it also adds a little bit of a bloom on the highlights and just kind of gives a little bit of a softer feel overall. Again, I don't shoot every image with this filter. I find that when I'm shooting in the studio, the bloom is just a little bit too much with studio lights, and so I take it off then. Or if I'm shooting weddings in the dark, I usually take that off as well. But for all of my personal stuff, for a lot of my travel work and all that, basically for the everyday stuff, which is exactly what this filter is designed for, it's really a perfect filter for that. So anyway, that is an update on me and why I added the Leica Q3 to my kit. Unfortunately, I am no longer a Canon R3 user, which is really sad, but if you know anything about me in this channel, I do a lot of gear setup videos, and I've absolutely done that in the Q3. I have done a deep dive onto the menu of the camera, and I have some kind of unique ways that I've set up this camera to specifically match my shooting style. So that video is in the pipeline and it's on its way. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about the Q3, my experience shooting with it, etc., let me know all of those down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.